Well, good evening, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on the In Review. Today is the 27th of March, 2025. I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening. And of course, each week there's always new developments in the news worldwide. We're seeing the war on tariff. We're seeing Rachel Reeves spring into steps, and we're also seeing that Rubio, the Secretary of State in the United States, has gone to the Caribbean, Fetes Jamaica. I think he's now in Guyana, Marco Rubio, and of course we can see the whole advent of the wars, Ukraine. Everything is saying that things are actually happening. But anyway, before we go any further, let me just bring in my guest tonight, and I'm going to bring in my normal brethren, Mr. Garry Graham. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, Sil, it's great to be back, man. It was as if I had not been on the show for almost 1 year.
Yeah, because last week you disappeared. I was saying, I said, but the show's got to go on, and I mean, if you just sold me, you know what I'm saying? The show's got to go on. So, well, thank you for gracing us this evening, and of course, I'm joined also by Mr. Adebayo Albina. Mr. Adebayo Albina, how are you doing, sir?
And I'm fine, thanks, Sylbourne.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's always good to get great minds to grace the platform as we dissect and review some of the top news which are happening in the UK, top news which are happening in the world. I was speaking to David, a colleague which you all know. We're talking about we need to tap into some top news which is happening in the African states, top news which is happening in the Caribbean. But we keep getting sucked into the Oval Office. We keep getting sucked into the UK. But let us first start with Rachel Reeves springing into steps with this recent spring budget. It's like she had to jump on the spring which is here, and she said, I want to get into this whole thing regarding spring. She set out her plan for the UK economy during her spring statement in the House of Commons, and it came as the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, which monitors the government spending, unveiled its latest economic forecast. Talk about welfare changes, economic forecast, housing, and different things, spending rule, defense, and overseas aid. She went for it. I don't know what's your take on it, Adebayo?
I mean, I think thanks, Sylbourne, thanks, Garry. It's nice to see both of you. It's a bit I don't want to say unfortunate. The Labour government came in promising growth, and the headline grabbing sort of fact from the spring statement is growth being halved from 2% to 1%, which I think is quite detrimental to the UK economy as a whole. I don't think the Labour government would get the growth they think they will. There was, a lot of things on capital infrastructure spending, but the way to drive growth is not to basically, put a lot of taxes on businesses, which is going to kick in April. So I think they've got their priorities the wrong way around. Obviously, we do know there's need for investment, investing in the NHS. No one is going to doubt that. That's absolutely fine. But what you can't do, you can't actually, tax businesses to the point where you're going to stifle growth. So that's my take home message is, you're promising growth, but you've got to go in the direction of your policy as well. If you're going to go after growth, then you've got to put in place, pro-growth policies, which I'm not really sure we're getting that from the Labour government. I mean, that's just my view. I'm conservative, so I'm a bit biased on these.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I say, I mean, it's so funny. They're talking about the budget and all those sort of things. But one of the things I find very concerning also is that it's like this whole period of time since Labour has come into power, Labour seem to want to just going at it. It's like it is like the people need a time to rest after 14 years after after 22 billion. The people need a time to rest, and they've had no time to rest because waboom, the fuel, they take that away. Waboom, taxes gone up. Waboom, money has been thrown at Ukraine, and they're saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not from the UK. It is from frozen funds." So people are sort of get caught up and say, "What's the sense of government and voting?" Garry, what's your take on what I just said?
Well, I mean, I think what is quite clear, and I think everyone that has been listening to what we've been talking about long before the election came, and while the election was going on, if there was anybody who kept up to date with us, all what is happening now is all what we said would happen, really. Things would go wrong. The Labour Party, there's no Labour Party that has ever come in and taxes have not gone through the roof. And for me, the only reason, and I don't know if Adebayo would agree, but the only reason why Starmer is careering towards war is to keep the industry going. Because if the country can't make arms, if the country doesn't get involved in war to manufacture something, then the manufacturing arm of the United Kingdom is going to dry up. Because there is nothing at all that the Labour Party is presenting to the country that is able to bring any kind of growth at all. Everything that they said they wouldn't do, they've had to do it. And I don't think that there's any world leader out there that really that gives Starmer the credibility that probably he would want to have. Because even, I believe, I'm not going to say who I think he said it, but one of the world leaders did pass a remark to say that Keir Starmer really is making, not in these words, but is wrecking the British economy. And he is. I don't think Reeves really knows what she's doing. She does not bring any stability to the market. She hasn't brought any stability to the markets at all. I mean, even though Trump is doing what he's doing, but if there was somebody from any of the G8 countries that could steady the markets, it should have been her, but she's not doing that. She's not doing that. So the British people, the citizens of the UK, they are up in arms. I mean, we haven't heard much about what the farmers have been doing, but I'm sure that they're still protesting, and I'm sure there's been some protestations going down in the city of London before 10 Downing Street. I'm sure. I'm not too sure, but I'm hearing that there's things happening down there, and we're not hearing anything because the government is not reassuring the population of the UK that everything is under control. And I believe strongly that is why Starmer is talking up, or is whipping up the storms of war, because that's the only way that the UK economy is going to survive because if they don't beef up their defenses, if they don't start making more tanks, if they don't start making more weapons, if they don't start making more whatever planes or whatever, because even I've been listening to a few of the retired generals it's not a lot of them anyway, of the UK Army, and they're saying that England is not, or the UK or Great Britain is not hasn't got the weaponry as they used to have. It's greatly weakened.
Mm.
So the government has to do something to beef up the military arm of the UK, and this is the only way I think that Britain is going to survive.
Let's hear what you, if you can come in there, Adebayo. What's your take on what?
I mean, I obviously, like I said, I'm conservative, but just to sort of look at these from a non-biased perspective, there's just a number of things. We're in the age of political truth, and the Labour Party made a couple of mistakes in the age of Trump, in the age of politicians being very forthright about what they'll do in government. I think the Labour Party made the huge mistake of promising heaven and earth. You can't say you're going to, have the highest level of public spending against a background where we're paying hundreds of billions of pounds just to service the debt. At the same time, speak about reducing NHS waiting list, and you also want to drive growth. I think being able to marry increasing, public spending and a pro-growth policy. I think there's a lot of, tension between both policies. I think the Labour Party needs to nail their mast somewhere and really decide, what political party are we? Are we actually a pro-growth Labour Party, or we're going to be a party driving up, public expenditure? I'll give you an example. So, for example, the benefit bill is absolutely huge. And I don't think the Labour Party has the political courage to actually deal with that, right? So you've got a lot of young people. The current stats, there's about 2 million people in the UK out of the working age population, currently on benefits. I don't think that's sustainable. And I think the Labour Party needs to start to ask itself real serious questions. So that's the first point. The Labour Party needs to be forthright and say, well, we would not be able to spend this much on public expenditure, but we're going to focus on growth. This is the pain, here are the trade-offs. That conversation is not being had. They basically promised that we're going to do every single thing pre-election, and now people realize that's not possible. So first point. The second point on their budget is on infrastructure spending. So whilst, spending on roads, spending on schools, these are fantastic, but it's not going to win you much votes because capital infrastructure, the benefits would come in about 5 or 10 years' time. So if you're going to build a school, if you're going to construct new roads, setting planning reforms, the buildings would not come in the next 2 months, right? It's not going to come in the next 3 months. And if you check I don't think the UK has ever built anything close to what the Labour Party is promising. So their manifesto, they're currently saying they'll build 300,000 houses. That's not even possible because where are people actually going to build the buildings? Where are the construction workers, the equipment? So you have all these pie in the sky policies which they are promising. I think it's time for them to level up. Otherwise, they will be in serious trouble at the next election.
So are you saying then that the Labour Party is somewhat like a scattergun? A scattergun is like shooting all over the place, trying to make it make sense, and many people are just. One would say Starmer is more like a quieter version of Trump.
No, I'm not going to say it's a quieter version of Trump. I just think he's someone who wants to please everyone. And if this was, 14, 15 years ago, the Tony Blair era, you could argue this might be, a political stance that actually maybe makes sense. But that's all gone. We've got Trump. There is nothing stopping Keir Starmer from being a very bold prime minister and say, we're pro-growth government. We will set up policies to drive up businesses, to support businesses. But here are the trade-offs. We can't spend this amount on benefits and stop trying to please, the people in the left wing of the Labour Party.
Because he's got the numbers. He's got the numbers, isn't
He's got the numbers. So he can be bold, and also people would respect it. I just think there is so much, how do I describe it? The political grounds have shifted so much. People no longer want, grey political parties. You've got to be white. So, take Reform UK as an example. They've got a very clear policy, clear policy platform. Hopefully, with new leader of the Conservative Party, we're still working things out. So I think the Labour Party does have a long-term strategic opportunity. You don't have to please everyone, and I think they're making that mistake in terms of you can't. I mean, it's just sheer numbers. If you have this level of public debt, challenges to public expenditure, economic headwinds coming from the United States, we're out of the European Union, and you're still promising to do things you perhaps could do 20 years ago. I don't think that's possible.
Well, one of the things you mentioned a while ago about welfare change, and Garry, you can come into this health-related universal credit for new claimants, which was already due to be cut from £97 to £50 per week from April 2026. Under 22s will no longer be able to claim the health-related element of universal credit. Standard allowance for universal credit will rise by £14 a week by 2030 instead of £15 a week as announced last week. Some senior person within the Labour Party, I think it was John McDowell. Is it John McDowell? He said, if you close your eyes and just listen, you will not know which government is in power. Is it a conservative government or so? Garry, what's your take about that? If you close your eyes, you won't know which actual government is in power. It's like,
well,
is it fair to say?
I would totally agree with that statement. For instance, I don't know if Adi Bayer would be able to help me out. There was a lady who some years back, she was a part of the Conservative Party, but she spoke very yes, she spoke what I don't know the term to use, but that is how and is it Angela Reeves? Is that her name?
Or is it Edwina Curry? Not Edwina Curry.
No, it's not. It's not Edwina Curry. She was around during that time, but she spoke. She was a little bigger, taller, I would say, because Edwina Curry is a little shorter, but I think she was a little taller than Edwina. Can't remember. I'm going to try and see if I can find it. But I'll find her name. But that's how Reeves sounds. She sounds like a conservative. She doesn't sound flexible at all. And I'm wondering, who is she trying to impress? Because she's certainly not doing it for me. And the thing about it too is that I don't think she knows what she's doing. Now, I'm not saying she's not able to do well. She may be an accountant. I don't know what her field of expertise is. She may be a very qualified accountant. But because you're that doesn't mean that you can balance the books of the government. And I don't think really she's doing a good job. But yes, if you close your eyes and woke up one morning hearing her talk, you think that it's a conservative MP speaking.
Is that a good thing for Kemi Badenoch at this time? For such sort of comparisons to be made, Adebayo?
I mean, I think you can. Kemi Badenoch realizes the sort of how desperate things are right now for the Conservative Party. I mean, I think the challenge, right, is the Labour Party can sound conservative. They can say, "Oh, we're going to do all these conservative things," but they don't actually have the drive nor the expertise to drive these policies. So I mean, you could have a car, you could paint your car like a Rolls Royce, you could, maybe even change the body of it, but if the engine is not a Rolls Royce, it's not going to function like one. And I'll give you a practical example. If you look at the Labour Party cabinet, how many of them have actually run a business? I think just one person. Whereas when you look at the Conservative cabinet, these are guys who know what they're talking about. So Rishi Sunak, someone who...
In relation to business-wise, in relation to business, running business.
Yes, in relation to business. So Rishi Sunak, for example, he might not have run a business, but he knew about the financial world. So many people, Mel Stride, these are people who understand what it means to run businesses, to grow businesses. So you don't have that. You have people who can talk the talk, but they don't actually have the experiential knowledge to deliver the policies which they espouse. And I think that's going to come through quite quickly. And it's a bit like the farmers' inheritance tax. It just does not make sense. And I think that they're starting to face realities right now. And as I've said earlier, they will find out quite quickly that, balancing the books and the operational implications of things is quite different.
Mm. Let's move. Let's move on. There's a point here which I'm going to use to juxtapose and to jump over into Trump bit. Car tariffs, a sign worse would come. Reeves admitted the car tariffs would be bad for the UK, but insisted the government was in extensive talks to avoid them being imposed here. According to the OBR, these import taxes would have a direct impact on goods totaling around 0.2% of GDP. Before Trump's announcement, the OBR warned of the risk of an escalating trade war. And while the proposals do not exactly match the watchdog's worst-case scenario, which will see the UK reality, almost 0.2% is a tiny amount. Nevertheless, it will affect the economy. Do you think the UK is able to withstand the onslaught of the Trump factor?
I don't think so.
Because.
I think I don't think that the British economy really can take a beating. If Trump, if Starmer and Reeves don't do something, don't try to get to Trump and his team, then I don't think the economy is going to make it. I don't think the British economy will be able to take this onslaught at all. We are standing outside of the EU, Now the EU is already retaliating, right? They're feeling the bite. They're feeling the bite of the decisions which Trump has made. We are just one little. Are we the third largest economy in the world? Are we the third or the fifth? Which one?
The sixth.
I remember. Okay, we are the sixth, right? Now the thing about it is this: that we can't take it. What else more? The automobile industry in the UK is already taking a beating, already taking a hammering, and for Trump then to begin to say, well, the cars coming from here, going to the United States, there's going to be a tariff. Is it 25% or what is it? Is that, I don't know what the percentage is.
25% is the key factor which they are talking about, but I think it has not hit the UK as yet.
It's going to kill the automotive industry. At least it's going to, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 18% of the exports, and again, Andy Bayer may be able to help me out on this if he knows. I think it's 18% of the exports that leaves here to go to America is 18%. That's going to be hit. That's going to be reduced. Never mind everything else, because the only car industry that Britain, does Britain again have anything that they can say is their own? It's not really their own. I mean, Jaguar Land Rover, that's Indian, because it's there's an Indian billionaire that owns that. So anything that England has had already doesn't belong here anyway. So I don't think that the economy.
And someone said on TikTok says tariffs won't affect us directly; they will affect the stock market, and that will hurt our economy. But it's directly. I mean, what's your take on these tariffs that Trump is going left, right, and center, hitting everywhere? Every car that comes to the United States will be 25%.
I mean, for me, there's a number of things. Like I said earlier, I do hope this is just a negotiating tactic from President Trump, and He's just trying to posture politically to achieve something. But let's assume he's not posturing and this is actually real. I agree with Garry. I think this is going to be a huge hit to the United Kingdom. So, for example, US, in terms of our export market, it's about 16.9% of the UK's market. So that's huge. About 7.6 billion pounds in sales in terms of car sales. So that's a lot of money to then have 25%. But I do think there are some levers the UK government could pull. So currently, as a legacy of the UK being part of the European Union, we actually levy about 10% tariff on US cars being imported to the UK. I mean, there's nothing stopping from Labour Party saying, we're going to cut down the 10% tariff being imposed on American cars, and maybe cut down that down to 5% as a sort of, if Trump can be reasonable, to make him reconsider the 25% tariff on UK exports. But no doubt this is going to be huge. UK car industry experts are already dreading the impact of these. And I don't think we're in a position to withstand much. Like, there's a 1% growth forecast, and this is going to massively impact that.
So what you're actually trying to say is that the UK need to sort of have some high-level negotiation and go into Trump and actually, I'm not going to say bow, but almost bowing to a certain extent.
There is no point of Brexit if you're not going to be in charge of trade policy and actually use it. What's the point of having levers if you're not going to pull it? So if we're currently imposing 10% tariffs on US-made cars being imported into the UK, the US export market, right? So we export 16.9% of our car export market goes to the US. That is huge. And that's about 7.6 billion pounds.
Yes.
So why not say, okay, we're going to cut tariff of US cars being imported into the UK, and let's see what Trump does in terms of, perhaps cutting down the 25% tariff to, maybe 15%, 10%, if he's not going to 100% exclude us. But I do think we've got to be serious right now. The US, the GDP of the US is larger than all of Europe combined. So we're not dealing with a small country here. We're dealing with a huge powerhouse.
A major player. And in setting the context as to, just for any listeners or anyone listening, what are tariffs and how do they work? Tariffs are taxes charged on goods imported from other countries. And those announced so far target products including cars, aluminum and steel, and goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. China. I'm using the word that Trump like to say, China. And why is Trump using tariffs? Is that tariffs are a central part of Trump's economic vision. He says tariff is his favorite word. He argues that taxes will encourage U.S. consumers to buy more American goods, boosting the country's economy and increasing the amount of tax. What do you think about that? Adebayo and Garry, one of the things I said when Trump gave his inauguration speech, I said, couldn't he make it a bit more conciliatory and maybe a bit nice? And then I said, hang on a second. This guy's been saying the same thing every day on the campaign trail. And he's saying the same thing on the inauguration. He's saying the same thing every day. Isn't this what he's been saying? Garry, isn't this what Trump has been saying all the while? Bring back, go on,
No, I was just going to say that everything that Trump said on his campaign trail is what he's doing now. Everything. Okay. It looks far-fetched, and there may be even something he never said he's doing now, but he's doing some things. He's saying something. I'm not saying that whatever he's doing is right. And not everything he's doing is
that's wrong. That's how he won, isn't it?
But that's why he won. That's why he won.
Adebayo, let's think about this Trump factor for a certain second and what he's doing. And he's pandering to his base. Does he need to sort of pander to the other side as well and try to run the country? The president of not just my United States of those guys who voted for me, but I'm the president of everyone. Rocket and Schumacher and all these persons and the view.
So I was a local councillor here in Glasgow, and just at the local level, being involved in local politics. I've stood for parliament a couple of times, and it's absolutely challenging to stand for parliament. It's challenging to stand for elections, and the cold, brutal reality of politics is you've got to give your base something, and I think you can be president in terms of rhetoric and say, well, you're president for all of America. The cold reality is you would govern 80% of the time for people who voted for you, right? Especially when, Trump won the popular vote. It was an outstanding victory. And, 20% you might then do for people who did not vote for you, because that's just how the system works. It's a winner takes all system. I think would be politically naive to think that he would try to, perhaps govern for all of America in quotes. Like I've said, in terms of rhetoric, you can soften your rhetoric, bring everyone along. But in terms of hard, political substance, the substance will be to basically feed his political base. And that's just the reality of things. So think about Ronald Reagan, think about, people like Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher. Everyone ends up pandering at some point to the people who voted for you. Tony Blair was a centrist, so he could govern as a centrist because that's how he won the vote. Trump didn't win the vote by being a centrist.
Yes.
He won the vote by being very divisive, saying extremely controversial things. So we should not expect him to then govern as a centrist. And I think it's a fundamental, it's politically naive to think he will, try to govern for all of America. Like I said, he could speak like he's governing for all of America, but I think his policies will be to feed his political base.
Garry, can you come in right there based on what Adebayo says as to the Trump factor and persons on TikTok? What's your take on what Trump is doing now? Is he not just fulfilling the core aspect of his campaign? He's been doing that right through. As a matter of fact, right after he even lost that last election, he was out there campaigning every day, same way at different eras. Garry, isn't Trump just doing what? I mean, isn't Trump doing what Starmer is not doing? Starmer is not going for his base. Starmer is doing something completely different. Trump is just staying close to his base.
Yeah. Trump is being Trump. Trump is being Trump, and I think he's securing that. He's making sure that he doesn't move from whatever he said that he was going to do. That's what he's going to do, and that's what's being done. Whether anybody, well, we know that, let us say, I don't know the numbers, but let's say half of the country is not with him. Let's just say that. So he's got opposition right there. I mean, can you, or did you see the speech he made to Congress? An hour, it was well over an hour speech, and the Democratic Party didn't move.
You mean the State of the Union? The State of the Union.
Yeah. The Democratic Party didn't move. It's as if they were statues, just sitting down there, listening, watching, and not taking part at all. So that in of itself brings the picture that half of the country did not agree. They're not with Trump. So Trump knows what he's up against. But Trump is strong. Trump is a strong man. Now, I'm not saying again that I agree with everything that he's doing. But he's a strong individual. And I take my hat off to him when after he was sworn in as president, and he stood there and he made a statement. To me, that statement trumps all, or trumps everything else that he made. He is the only world leader that stood up and said, there are only two genders, male and female. Now, I'm just wondering what the LGBT or the soup, the soup, you can imagine how they were jumping up and down in fury because the president of the United States, the most powerful individual, let us say, in the world today, he went against all odds. He went against the grain to say there are only two genders, male and female. So I take my hat off to him because he's a strong individual. And he's doing everything that, I mean, look when he says he's going to deport the illegal immigrants or the convicts or those who are in prison. It is said that Biden, he didn't say a lot. He never promoted it and so, but in his term of 4 years, he deported more illegal immigrants and convicts than any other president. I don't know, but it said that he did that. I don't know. There's no proof. There's no data that I can show. But Trump is certainly doing the things that he said he was going to do. With all the backlash that's happening, he's doing what he said he's going to do.
I just picked up something on TikTok here. Someone said Trump is not good for the USA. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. Is it a roller coaster ride? It's still good, isn't it? Roller coasters are nice, isn't it? I like roller coasters. Roller coasters are really kids love roller coasters. What do you say, Adabir? Is Trump good for USA? Good for the world at this time?
I mean, the idea of roller coaster is quite good if you're seeking entertainment and you're just like a bystander. It's not so good when people's pensions are tied to the stock market. They are tied to government borrowing and all that. So I think so. I do hope Trump has a long-term strategic goal. If anything, like I said, I really do hope the tariffs is just political posturing because it's cool. I mean, to fair play to Trump, right? So imposing tariffs could actually, it's not kicked in yet. It's meant to kick in next week. It could actually force governments to come together and say, well, hang on a minute. Okay, so Mr. Trump, should we look at tariffs? Should we reduce tariffs on American imports into the European Union? And, whilst we're blaming Trump, let's also remember that the EU is also quite protectionist. The EU doesn't really allow agricultural products from some African countries into the EU, basically to protect their own farmers. So you do have, everyone's fighting their own corners. So I'm not going to blame Trump for trying to fight for the American people. It's just whether he's going about it the right way. Is it economically literate? And given the level of interconnectivity of supply chains, you could be making cars in the UK, but you're getting the parts from India. So what's the point of imposing tariffs on India when they could easily just, get back at you? So Tesla, Elon Musk put out a statement, I think, on X, saying, Tesla would have a very significant impact from proposed Trump tariffs. So, I mean, this is going to affect everyone.
It is very interesting. What is it there? Because you said something a while ago that Trump is fighting for the American people, or Trump is for the American people. But the American people are going to say, they are demonstrating and say, Trump is not for us. So it's like split. Is it? What do you say? Split 60, 40 in America, or 40, 60, 60% for Trump, 40% who just stand up against him, or so with the advent of Elon. I mean, Elon Musk went in the space and collected these astronauts, and they're still having a go at him. He's saving lots of money, according to what they say. He's actually making it difficult for a lot of persons at the same time. But Trump is looking at the bigger picture and say, hang on a second, I don't understand this money going out there. As a matter of fact, I was even saying in Jamaica that whenever there's a new government, and if there's a new government, when some questions about statutory declaration, that should the new government investigate or do something what Elon Musk is doing and trying to find out where all these money the spending as Trump set the bar where lots of countries are going to follow, or they just want to get rid of Trump. 4 years, that's it. Finish with Trump. No more Trump in this world.
I mean, he can't stand again. So that's the thing. He's only got these terminal fees. But in terms of driving efficiencies, I suppose all governments can learn from what the US government is doing in terms of driving efficiency savings. But does Trump speak for the American people? I would say it's 50-50 in terms of Americans who support Trump and Americans who don't. It's just their electoral system. And you can't blame him. He's won free and fair based on the system they've got in the States.
There's something though. Marco Rubio flew into the Caribbean, flew into Jamaica recently. Garry, I know that Marco Rubio was down there, and lots of people are talking about that. Apparently, he's in Guyana now. And one of the thing he's talking about is Rubio to discuss with Jamaica Cuban doctor programs after U.S. visa threats. I don't know if you hear about that, Adebayo or Garry, about this whole thing regarding Cuban doctors, that the persons that are using Cuban doctors, their visa is gonna be questioned. I mean, Mia Motley say, away with my visa. Gonzalez say, away with my visa. And all these different Caribbean leaders are saying, we don't want a visa from America. Tough. We'll stick with Cuba. Rubio flew into Jamaica, had a long chat with the Prime Minister. People asking questions about China as well. They say he got a bit very annoyed as well. So it is, Trump is actually having this issue with China. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have followed that,
Well, I mean,
No?
It's strange, or I think it's a bit funny that nobody in Jamaica is raising the alarm about the Chinese there. I mean, I think the government has allowed the Chinese to come in and almost take over the running of Jamaica. They might as well give Xi Jinping Jamaica. They might as well give him that because that's all you see. However, sorry, on the issue of Cuban and Cuban doctors, it's a proven fact that Cuba and their medical fraternity is one of the best in the world, and to have Cuban doctors come to Jamaica, that should not be frowned upon, and I mean, to tell you the truth, if Trump could get close to the adversary that the whole world is afraid of, which is Putin, then why can't Trump try and forge a relationship with the Cuban government? I mean, the Cuban government is not as toxic as it was under Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro, okay, he was a little tyrant and a dictator down there, and everybody seemed to be afraid of his mouth down there. But Cuba is not shouting and going as bad as they used to. So I think it's a bit unfair. I think it is unfair. Again, you've got Jamaicans in Jamaica that needs medical help, medical attention. So to penalize Jamaicans all because they're too close, they form too close a relationship with Cuban doctors, I don't think that's right.
Yeah. Let me see if I can just play. I'm gonna see if I can play this and see if you can listen to it. Let me see if you can hear it. Just put your thumbs up if you can hear it, or if it thumbs down if you can't hear it. I'll try something. Okay, let me stop right there. Let me stop right there. I think I had the wrong bit up there. Let me just, so you could have put your thumbs down because it wasn't coming up. Let me see if I can put something up there. Let me see. Give me a second there. Marco Rubio. 1, 2. Nope. Nope. Trump announced Rubio to discuss. Okay, here it is. Okay, let's go.
About peace. It's not going to be easy. It won't be simple. It'll take some time, but at least we're on that road and we're talking about these things and we're going to test it and see what's possible. We think we owe that to the world. And the president, I continue to say, is the only leader in the world right now, President Trump, who's in a position to even get these two nations to a city to talk about these things, albeit in rooms far apart from one another when these talks are going on. But nonetheless, they're talking to be done, and we'll know more after we get the readout from our teams.
Okay, our last question will come from Andrea Chisholm from Television Jamaica.
Thank you. Secretary Rubio, given changes to U.S. immigration policies, there are some Jamaicans who are afraid to travel back to Jamaica, even though they are legitimate green card holders. What assurances can you give to those individuals that they will have no difficulty returning to the United States?
Well, yeah,
And
green card,
quickly,
green card
sir.
or residency? I mean, permanent residence you're asking me about? Yes,
Permanent,
okay,
yes.
okay.
And secondly, what problems, if any, does America have with China's investment in Jamaica?
Well, look, I mean, China's a rich and powerful country. Our problem with is not investment. Okay, our problem is predatory practices. That's what we're concerned about. What we have seen all over the world is that China comes in and says, here's a bunch of money for a project they never build. They bring their own workers to do the work. They don't hire the locals. They bring their own workers. And oftentimes it comes attached with a huge loan that can never be repaid. And now they hold it over your head forever. That's our concern. Our concern is unfair practices too, where they come in, they're government subsidized companies, underbid everybody because they're subsidized, but then they come back and charge you whatever they want because now they've got the contract. So these are the things that we remain very concerned about. Again, not specifically about Jamaica, but in general. And so that's what we'll continue to highlight. On the first point, I would say, let me talk about that. If you're a green card holder, you're not illegally in the United States. You're a green card holder, you are legally in the United States. What the president has said, and I don't know how anybody can disagree with this, every country in the world has immigration laws. And immigration laws, if you don't enforce them, you don't have immigration laws. Over the last few years, we've had, 13, 14, 15 million people enter the United States unlawfully and irregularly. No country in the world can assume that. By the way, that's not unique to us, right? Even here in Jamaica, you face challenges of migration. And it's not that we don't sympathize with people that are leaving difficult circumstances, is that no society can absorb mass migration from anywhere in the world. You just can't do it. And we're facing that challenge. That's not specific to Jamaica. I'm just speaking in general. And so the president is doing something that frankly hasn't been done in a long time. He's enforcing our immigration.
What do you guys think about what he said?
Doing.
Marco Rubio said in regards to China and regarding immigration, because there's a lot of upheaval going on now in the States in regards to people scared of even having their green card or leaving America, that they might get confrontation at immigration when they're coming back in. And a bit about China, a lot of people are saying that one of the reasons why he went to Jamaica, of course, people are saying, is because of the impact and the influence of China all over Jamaica, all over the Caribbean, all over Africa. What's your take on those bits there, Adebayo? I don't know if your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, on the subject of China, I think China is always an interesting one. I tend to agree more with Marco Rubio about Chinese practices, even in mainland Africa, in terms of giving huge loans, and you then have governments being subject to quite unacceptable practices. I mean, if China was going into African countries and developing the local capacity of the workers, right? Upskilling the local people, perhaps that's not going to be a challenge. But if they're going to bring in their own workers and, their own sort of expertise, and they live with their expertise, the local people aren't trained up, I really do question China's motive for investing. On the point about immigration, I think, there is no country, right? If you don't control immigration, I don't think you're a country. So I think it's perfectly sensible to control immigration numbers. but you've got to do it in a humane way, and you've got to do it in a way that is very clear and fair.
Mm.
So I'm not sure what's being done in the States in terms of green card holders, but I don't think it sounds right if you're in the United States legally to then be afraid of exiting the country. Because why would you, if you're in the US legally and you've got a green card or permanent residence? So I think the fact that people are afraid to leave the country does speak to perhaps the fear of what could be as opposed to the substance of things.
Yes. Garry, what's your take on Trump factor there, and Marco Rubio in Jamaica and the Caribbean, and a bit of China? I must say there before you answer, there was another bit which he spoke about Cuba, and he talked about the doctors. And what he's saying is that also about the practices again. He said what Cuba has done is actually train up a lot of the doctors. The doctors are then exported all over the world, and then you've got to pay the Cuban government. And then the Cuban government don't sort of remunerate them. So they use it a bit like indirect sort of trading. So and Marco Rubio, of course, who you know is Cuban descent, is very annoyed by that as well. Garry.
I mean, can you remind me of what he said about the Chinese?
What he said about the Chinese? He said the
Yeah.
practices. Because I do recall one time some guys did some video at the Bay in Jamaica and said, look at this building here. Not one Jamaican is there. A pure Chinese there that they have invited, taken over from China. And some of the places which have been building is pure Chinese all over the places. And also actually there's a place which was being opened once, and I saw Jamaicans dressed in Chinese outfit, and the writing there was in Chinese. Actually, also, I do recall that, and they're giving them some prime estate, some prime real estate in Jamaica as well. And I must say this as well. I must say this. The question is this, and many people say, "Well, China is good for Jamaica," and I ask the question: out of America or China, who would you support? And then the answer came to me. Where are the majority of Jamaicans living in this world outside of Jamaica? Where? Garry, where are most Jamaicans living outside of Jamaica?
Well, it must be China.
It's not Garry, not China, you know, it's USA.
No, but listen. I mean, they're absolutely, whoever made that, they're absolutely right because everywhere China goes, they always take their people with them.
Mm.
They use the indigenous people to do the menial tasks, but they take their Chinese counterparts with them, and they place them in the positions of influence or whatever. And that's how they work. Now obviously the Jamaicans that are there, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Sylbourne, and I don't know how much Adibe may know anything about Jamaica or view things on Jamaica. But there are some things I've seen on social media or on Facebook or wherever I think I've seen where in Jamaica on the sites, the building sites, the way how the Chinese treat the Jamaicans or talk to them, it's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And then you've got the Chinese who also have the shops. Now I know everybody knows, anybody that knows anything about Jamaica, right, is that you've got Jamaican Chinese there, right? That's no problem at all. I mean, you'll find the Jamaican German or German Jamaican, however you want to say it. You've got people
German
all
town,
over the world. You've got people from all over the world who have been born there, and Jamaicans accept them. But the difference comes, Sylbourne, is when you've got the Chinese who are being transplanted there, they open their shops and they try to talk Jamaican, they try to act like Jamaican, they try to behave like Jamaican, and all they do is that they invite the bad boys there to come in there and to shoot them up because of their way of trying to integrate themselves, but yet they can't do it. They're trying to talk like them, the bad word and the cussing and everything. You know, they look stupid doing that, but yet they bring offense. That's what the Chinese do. They try to take over wherever they go. They try to take it over, and they're not successful in it. But yet the Jamaican government, all they do is sell out Jamaica to the Chinese, sell them prime real estate, ask them to build this, ask them to build that, nice roads probably, nice buildings. Okay, that's fine. You hardly see the Jamaicans on these sites. They're not the ones that's putting up the whatever. It's all Chinese foremen, Chinese managers. Everybody's Chinese there. But yet, they mistreat Jamaica.
So they must sell out. So Jamaica sell out.
Well, they have. It's not fair. And it's the same thing what they do when they go to Africa. I'm sure Eddie Bear could. I'm sure he must know that.
I lost myself there for a second ago. Garry, are you there? Yeah.
I'm here. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Eddie Bear
okay.
has seen that.
Thanks for that, Garry. We're gonna. Time is upon us now. Eddie Bear, just bear with me for a second. 6 minutes. Can you hear me? Yeah.
You're going in and out.
Yeah, you're in and out here.
Adebayo, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you, but you're freezing.
I'm freezing. I'm freezing.
You're fine now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, let's indulge with me for a few minutes just to listen to Kemi Badenoch at Prime Minister's Question Time and listen to the Prime Minister answering questions at Prime Minister Question Time and see if he does answer questions. So let us listen to that for a second.
The opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, in 30 minutes, we will hear the Chancellor's emergency budget. Yes. Even the Home Secretary's husband calls it an emergency budget. As she scrambles to fix the mess she made last October. But first, let's turn to another government minister who is making a mess of her brief, the Education Secretary. Why did Labour MPs vote against banning phones in schools last week?
Prime Minister.
Because it's completely unnecessary. I've got teenage children. Almost every school bans phones in school. They do it already. We need to concentrate on what's really important here, which is getting to the content that children shouldn't be accessing. That's where I would genuinely like to work across the House, because I think there's a huge amount of work to do. But the battle is not with schools already banning phones in school. The battle, and this is an important emerging battle, is to work together to ensure that we can ensure that the content that children are accessing, wherever they are, is suitable for their age.
Mr. Speaker, we can look at the content, but if the ban is unnecessary, then why is it that they've started a review? Just last week, his Education Secretary called a ban a bit gimmick, yet teachers and head teachers say the evidence already shows that schools that ban phones get better results. And he's wrong. Not all schools do this. Only 1 in 10 schools are smartphone free. So will he U-turn on this?
We need to ensure that all schools do this, but the vast majority do. Look, it is really important that we focus on the battle we have to have with mobile phones, which is the content that children are able to access. And we need to ensure that that is controlled wherever they are. So it's a question of having the right battle on the right issue, not wasting time on something where almost all schools are already banning mobile phones.
Can I just stop there for a second and zeroing on this whole issue about mobile phones in home, mobile phones at school with children. What's your take? Sorry. Keir Starmer, I sense, is the type of person like to have his way, because someone recently said there should be a minister of men, a minister for men, and he said, "Oh, we don't need a minister for men." You know, the mobile phone bit now. Oh, we need to implement it all over. What's your take on this guy? Go for it, Adeboye.
Okay. I mean, mobile phones, banning mobile phones. Right. I think this is a tricky one. I do not think it's the place of government to tell us how to live our lives. So I'm not quite sure what Kemi Badenoch's position is on this, but I do think we should trust head teachers to make decisions on a local level. I do not want to see kids using mobile phones in classrooms. I don't want to see them being distracted by mobile phones when they should be learning. But I think I'm extremely comfortable trusting head teachers to implement things on a local level. And if a particular head teacher is not doing their task properly, that's why we've got local authorities. The government can think about a legislative framework to drive schools towards a particular outcome. But I'm not sure a blanket ban on mobile phones. First of all, even if the government could ban mobile phones, I'm not just sure how possible it will be on an operational level.
Yes, Garry, what's your take on that? I mean, you don't have any children now, going
Well,
to school, but you have grandchildren coming up soon.
I would agree what Adebayo says. It's not for government to come in and to dictate what should happen on a ground level. I mean, is the next step going to be saying that they must ban phones in families? Are they going to come down to that?
Well, somebody just said a while ago, then ban smartwatches. Then that's what somebody just said on TikTok. Ban smartwatches. I mean, by highlighting phones and watches and all of these things, it'll only drive the again, that's advertising. Buy the watches, buy the phones, and there's going to be more phones in schools than at any other time. I mean, why are they doing that? Yeah. And the interesting thing now, schools are now giving children homework on their tablets, on their phones, and everything like that. That I don't know, Adebayo, because you're into lecturing. I don't know the age range of your students. What do you say about that? I mean, AI. People are now getting involved with AI. Schools are now encouraging artificial intelligence now on their phone.
Yeah, I mean, there is all sorts of things you could do with artificial intelligence. You could do, podcasts with AI. You could build PowerPoint slides with AI. I mean, AI is fantastic. I think, as with all technologies, we've got to embrace it. We've got to maximize the potential of technology and basically seize control of the technology, so that we can avoid nefarious actors gaining control of it. I'm just not sure banning mobile phones, like I said, even if it's possible, I mean, who is going to police it? What's going to be the penalty for using a mobile phone in school? I'm just not sure that's the right policy. And as conservatives, I think we should just trust head teachers to get on with their job.
Yes. Let's finish up with Kemi here. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the Prime Minister would say this. His own government evidence says that phones disrupt nearly half of GCSE classes every single day. Discipline is the #1 issue in many schools. Under the Conservatives, schools became twice as likely to be good or outstanding after going through our behaviour programme. So why did the Education Secretary abolish that programme?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the record of the last government. Under their watch, a third of children started school without appropriate level development, and that is not being able to use a knife and fork. A quarter left primary school without the required standard of reading, writing and maths, and 1 in 5 was regularly absent. That's why we're pushing up standards, more information from Ofsted, transparency for parents, more interventions where schools need it.
Mr. Speaker, he's not answering the question about discipline in schools because he doesn't care about discipline in schools. Everything his ideological decisions are costing schools so much. The national insurance hike means every state school in the country has to pay more for teachers. The Education Secretary promised to compensate schools in full for the jobs tax. Why hasn't it happened?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it was Labour that introduced academies. We've pushed up standards, and this is not ideological. I'm a parent of 2 teenage children, both of whom go to a state school. So I'm vested in this, and it matters hugely to me. Nothing ideological about it. That is why we're driving up standards, as we always have done.
Mr. Speaker, in 30 minutes, we will hear the Chancellor's emergency budget.
Can I stop there for a second? I just got a message saying, I'm working with young people and it's a nightmare to get them to focus on tasks. And the person said, please ban them. But what I understand, because my daughter goes to school and she got her phone, but they don't use a phone in the school. Children they don't use a phone in the school while they're at school. It's locked off in their bags or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
which is why I'm not sure about the whether, I mean, I tend to agree with the Prime Minister here. I'm actually not sure we've got kids in classes using mobile phones. I think a lot of schools, you've got to keep your mobile phones in your lockers anyway. So,
yes.
I mean, I'd like to see the statistics on the schools that allow kids to take mobile phones into classes. So I'm just not sure. I think, to be quite blunt, I'd like to see the Conservative Party focus more on the root causes of ill discipline in society, which is the breakdown of the family unit in the UK. And if the Conservative Party can actually focus on these, then we might begin to tackle issues about welfare, generational lack of employment, with kids being filled by local schools. If you have a breakdown of family unit, there is no discipline from the home, which is then manifest in primary schools, in secondary schools, in colleges. So why is there, a political party that can be brave enough to start speaking about family, I think will solve quite a lot of things. So I'd like to see Kevin Badenoch, maybe focus more on that as opposed to buying up mobile phones, which I think is more of a red herring, if I'm going to be honest.
Yes. Let me just finish off with Kemi here, going on to Rachel.
School. So I'm vested in this. Logical about it. That is why we're driving up standards, as we always have done.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question about compensating schools for their jobs tax. That is costing schools a lot of money. The CEO of the United Learning Group says the grant that they gave is 20% short. Some schools will face shortfalls of up to 35%. Can he guarantee that no teacher will lose their job as a result of his jobs tax?
Mr. Speaker, this government at the budget that put a record amount into our schools, just as we put a record amount into our NHS and into our public services, we were utterly failed under the last government. But yet again, she wants all the benefits, the NHS, but she can't say how she's going to pay for it. That's what got us into the mess in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will have heard that he could not guarantee that teachers' jobs are safe. Not only is he taxing schools, he's also lowering standards. He talks about our record. I'll tell him what our record was. Under the Conservatives, English schools shot up the international league tables, while schools in Labour-run Wales, standards fell. Academy freedoms led to the biggest improvement of standards in a generation. But the Education Secretary is attacking them with her reforms. Can the Prime Minister point to any evidence at all, that these discredited academy reforms will improve school standards?
Prime Minister.
Yes, take the example of schools going into academies. The vast majority of schools are already academies. Therefore, we need to think again about what we do about failing schools that are already academies. We need to go on to the next chapter. And they never take the big decisions, and that's why we ended up their record. Open borders, which she was the cheerleader for, a crashed economy, mortgages through the roof, the NHS on its knees, hollowed out armed forces, and what have we got already under this government? 2 million extra NHS appointments, 750 Breakfast Club, including one in her constituency, record people being returned who shouldn't be here, a fully funded increase in defence spending. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Can I just ask this question? Finally, Garry, what's your take on Kemi Badenoch now? Is she getting better? Getting greater at the job?
Well, she probably is getting better, or because Starmer is failing.
Sorry?
No, but no.
What's that?
I take my hat off to Kemi, but she doesn't have to do much. To tell you the truth, the way how Starmer is behaving as Prime Minister and is failing, he's behaving and he's failing badly, then Kemi really doesn't have to do much. She just has to continue doing what she's doing. Ask the relevant questions. He won't answer them.
Yeah.
He can't answer anything.
Yeah.
He can't. Every promise.
Yeah.
Every promise that he has made, and even before the general election, when the Conservative Party, when there was some hoo-ha about the council tax, he said, what did he say? He made some statement that he would freeze the council tax. What has he done in the last couple of days? He's raised it. So everything that he has promised that he would do, he hasn't kept any of his promises. So Kemi just has to keep the pressure on,
and let him just walk in. Let him just walk in it. Adebayo, your last word on Kemi. Last. You get the last word.
Yeah. So politics is about perception, right? Whether it's true or not actually doesn't matter. It's about how people feel. You can tell whether a politician will succeed or not based on how they start. So Starmer started by making impossible promises at the election. If you promise someone, I'm going to get you to the moon, if you do get to the star, right, that's still going to be counted as a failure because you promised them you're going to take them to the moon. Kemi Badenoch has given herself very few targets, and if she, achieves just a little bit, as Garry says, that might be perceived as success. So in that sense, she's been quite smart about how she's currently playing her game.
Okay, that's good. And Garry, I want to say, as I said before, Adebayo, 21 days of doing something, and it becomes a habit. I didn't check it out yet, but I don't know how many times now as Kemi has been at the dispatch box. If it is 21 times, if it is 21 times, then it becomes a habit and then it becomes natural. So I'm going to check it to see how many times has she been at the dispatch box. 21 days of doing something, it becomes a habit. And so we wish her all the best. And let's hope eventually that Keir Starmer will answer questions, because we all know now that he doesn't answer questions. But at the same time, prime ministers never answer questions, do they?
Well, yes. I mean that's a given. I mean, they don't really, for whatever reason, they don't. But as I said, remember I did make a statement, so that I think Sir Keir Starmer, I think he's on the borderline of being rude when he addresses when he addresses Kemi. So I think this is different. I think this is a different kind of answering, because if the opposition leader was a white man, a white male, or white female, I think it would have been different. I don't know if Adebayo would agree with that.
No comment, Adebayo?
I don't know. I don't really want. I'm not trying to escape the question, right?
Are you taking some hints from King Starmer then? Are you not wanting to answer the question?
No.
Listen, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight
Thank you.
and Thursday night in review. Special thank you for those who have been joining on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe. Someone on TikTok says, Sylbourne, can you say hi? Hi. Adebayo says hi, and Garry says hi as well. So listen, Adebayo, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight, first time, and I look forward for you to come again.
Thank you, Sylbourne.
And join us.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Look forward to that.
And Garry as well. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining the show, and thank you so much for being a part of this very interesting discussion. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know your views as well as to some of the points that you raised in regards to mobile phones being banned from school, tariffs regarding Donald Trump, Rachel Reeves, and this spring debate, and just your thoughts. And also let me know what your topics are that you'd like us to touch on as well. So peace out and have a good night, and see you Saturday night on Civics. Civics special. We'll have these civics discussions, which is great. We had Miss Joan Simpson last week, Saturday night. And next Saturday night, we'll see. Okay? Peace out.